have you ever thought about how you go about making a decision? Do you have any particular process, or maybe there's somebody you talk to, maybe Son would talk to Carlos, or Ken might talk to his beautiful bride.
And I do the opposite. Oh, is that so? Oh, okay.
One of the biggest skills, one of the greatest skills you can have is the ability to make big decisions or solve complex problems. And tonight, you're going to learn a powerful technique for solving some of your biggest problems. Back when I was married, my wife's name was Ann. She was a pretty girl, petite, brown hair. She was smart. She was a nurse, but she had this one fatal flaw. She didn't know how to read directions. Follow directions. This was before GPS, before there were Google Maps. So to find a place, she actually had to use an atlas, a paper map, and directions that somebody had given you. And we like to go on car trips. I'd drive, she'd navigate, and she could never follow directions, and we would get lost, and we'd show up late for places, we'd get into big arguments, and this happened again and again and again. It just seemed like there was no solution. She could not read a map or follow directions. So one time we're going to a wedding. We're going to a wedding in Michigan, and I'm driving, she's going to navigate. We're getting close to where the church is. And I found my way so far, but we're getting to that point where she's going to have to give me the direction on how to find the church. So at this point, I'm thinking ahead of this nightmare ahead of us. This next half hour or 2 hours, my stomach's starting to boil, I'm getting sweaty, my head's starting to hurt. So I know it's going to happen. We're going to get lost, and we're going to be yelling at each other. We're probably get to the wedding late, not talking to each other. So I said to Ann, we're going to have to get up on one of these exits coming up here. You're going to have to tell me where to get off. And she said, yeah, I know, Mark. I know. I've got the map. I've got the directions. I'll find it. So we go a little further, and I said, Ann, it might be this next exit we have to get off at. You got to tell me if we got to get off up here. She said, I know, Mark. I've got the map here. I'm going to tell you. I'm like, oh, this is going great. Now look, of course, she's got the map upside down. And I'm really I'm getting more and more upset. And so we get further, we get all the way up to the exit, and I say, Ann, you've got to tell me whether or not to get off here or not. And she thinks about it, and she says, yeah, get off here. One of my favorite shows growing up was called Hogan's Heroes. If you don't know the show, it's a comedy. It takes place in a German World War II POW camp, and it's led by Colonel Klink, who's this comically incompetent actor. He's kind of tall, bald, wears a monocle. And the good guy, the protagonist, is Colonel Hogan. He's the leader of the POWs. There's one episode where an unexploded bomb lands in a compound. It's an American bomb. So Colonel Klink tells Colonel Hogan he's going to have to defuse this bomb, so it's an American bomb. So he managed to get the directions. And in the scene, Colonel Klink's got the directions. He's leaning over Colonel Hogan, who's down. He's on his knees with the bomb. He's taking the bomb apart, and Klink is reading the directions. So they get pretty far down, and they get to this, what appears to be the final step. There's 2 wires leading to a timer in this bomb. But the directions they have end, and they don't know what to do next. So Hogan's down on his knees, and he looks up at Colonel Klink and says, Colonel Klink, you're in charge here. You tell me which one of these wires to cut. And Klink's all flustered. He's thinking. He says to Hogan, cut the black wire. So the camera pans in, and Hogan takes his wire cutters, and he leans in to cut the black wire, and he pauses, and all of a sudden he moves over. He cuts the red wire, and the bomb stops ticking. There's no explosion. Everyone's thrilled. They're celebrating. Everyone's happy at it except for Colonel Klink. And he looks down at Hogan and he says, Hogan, if you knew which wire to cut, why did you even ask me? And Hogan looks up at Colonel Klink and says, Colonel Klink, I didn't know which wire to cut, but I knew you'd pick the wrong one. And I thought, what a great idea, what a revelation. Hogan didn't know the answer, but he knew he could rely on the guy who was always wrong to make the decision. He'd do the opposite. So I'm in the car with Ann. She tells me to get off this exit. And I go straight. She says, Mark, I told you to get off here. What are you doing? And I said, well, Ann, I think it's actually this next exit up here. I had no idea. The only thing I knew for sure was Ann was going to be wrong. So I kept going, and we actually got off the next exit. It was amazing. We found the church without any problem. I mean, it was like a miracle. We actually got there without any problems. We actually found out later that some people, had we got off there, we really would have got badly lost. So for the next several years, I was married to Ann. I actually did this technique many times. At least a dozen times I did this with Ann, and it worked every single time. And Ann's no dummy. She figured this out after a few times, and it just irritated her no end because it worked every time. And it's hard to believe we ended up getting divorced, but I've used this technique since with other people, actually making even bigger decisions in just directions, like actually bigger life decisions. And this technique has worked for me every single time I've used it. So you may be thinking, who do you know in your life that maybe these people just drive you crazy? You know they're wrong about everything. You don't want to shun those people. You want to embrace those people because they could be the biggest ally you have in making your biggest decisions. So you want to go to those people. Share your problem with them. Ask them what they would do if they were you. Because after all, you know whatever decision they're going to make for you, it's going to be wrong. And then the opposite has to be right.